Welcome to Wealthy Living Conversations, episode 44. I'm Lisa, your host and founder of Wealthy Living. It is here that I connect with a variety of people to have inspiring and insightful conversations to help you live a meaningful, a connected and a well life, both personally and professionally. So with the current stay-at-home rules and limited opportunity for recreation outside of our homes, art is being used as a coping mechanism and a form of respite. Many people, including myself, are spending time embracing creativity, whether it's baking your favourite sourdough or learning to make sourdough, sewing, or dabbling in visual arts like drawing and painting. This global pandemic has highlighted the value of arts in all of our lives. It's a medium which is so often regarded as non-essential and indulgent, yet at the moment it's highlighting its importance. So in today's conversation, I want to take the incredible value of art a step further by exploring the importance of the creative process of an artist. It applies to multiple art forms, but today, with my very special guest, prolific painter and best-selling author, Tracy Verdugo, we want to highlight the way painting imitates life and the everyday flow on benefits from creating art. So Tracy really is an inspirational and curious soul who is fearlessly committed to expressing and honouring her own creativity, and is also passionate about gently guiding others to embrace theirs. After spending a week together and a facilitator team at the Ultimate Girls Week Away in retreat in Fiji earlier this year, I got to experience her painting workshop. And I'm not only blessed to call this beautiful woman my friend now, but also attest to her skill in empowering others to confidently and joyfully create art. She's a true inspiration instigator. Welcome, Tracy.
Wow. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I'm number 44. I love that. One of my favorite numbers.
Oh, see, it's just meant to be. We held off for a while and, maybe there was a reason. So I just want to tell everyone a little bit more about some of your background. So Tracy teaches her Paint Mojo and other creative workshops all over the world in this amazing planet. Obviously not now. She's had to not travel to some of the destinations that she otherwise would have. But generally she travels around the planet and reminds her students of the wonder that already resides within them. Her artworks are vibrant and they're filled with joy, inspired by both her global travels and the simple beauty of the focused moment. Since 2000, Tracy has had 18 successful solo exhibitions, and her works are held in collections both in Australia and internationally. If Tracy was given the opportunity to coin a term for a new art-based movement, it would be around what she teaches. She might call it curiosity and wonderism, or maybe loose upism, or endless possibilityism. And these are some of the things that we are going to explore in today's conversation. So let's get into it. So as I mentioned in the intro, Tracy, I want to explore the creative process and its flow-on benefits for people to live a meaningful, well and connected life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I want to start exploring the topics of discomfort and uncertainty. So because these feelings particularly are really particularly pertinent at the moment. Most people like the comfort of having things in its place. Yet artists seem to be so comfortable with embracing discomfort and uncertainty. And I'm wondering, do you feel this skill of artists is something that's developed through the creative process?
I feel it really is. I can't speak for every single artist because I think there's so many different ways of moving through your own process. But Lisa, what I've found over the years of teaching especially is that I've come to a deeper understanding of my own process, and then also different struggles that other creatives go through and how we can can kind of address those. And it's funny that you talk about, this straight off the bat, this embracing of, what did you call it? You were like embracing the uncertainty, I guess. Yeah. So I have an exercise that's like it's front and center of everything I teach, and it's called embracing the contrast. And so, we talk about it in terms of thin lines and thick lines, light and dark areas, scribbly and neat, that kind of thing. And I actually have students go through this exercise where they write this whole list of opposites. And so, as many opposites as they can think of in terms of art, but also in terms of life, because everything in art is a metaphor for life. And so what the list is for is that whenever you get to a stuck place in your painting, you look at the painting and you say to yourself, okay, what is there a little too much of right now? What is there? Okay, maybe it's just all very energetic. It's just lots of movement and line and it's just energy everywhere. What's the opposite to too much frenzy, too much energy? Oh, opposite is calm, tranquil. How do we make the next move to bring some calm, bring some tranquility into the piece? And that's all we're thinking about at that moment, is that kind of balancing out with the opposite move to kind of bring that into the piece. And we do that step by step throughout the artwork. Anytime you're feeling stuck, identify what is too much going on here. Is it just too much analyzing? Am I analyzing everything too much? So what's the opposite of that? Let me just do something that's a little more intuitive. Let me just have my hand move and just not think too much about it. So can you see how that can kind of also apply to life?
Absolutely. It really takes us on a journey, like the process of art making. And I've, spent a lot of my life embracing creativity, and sometimes it's more craft filled, and more recently, in the last number of years, I've sort of dabbled a little bit in the painting process. And it really does take you on a journey and explore those life dualities, and dance with that really difficult balance of holding on and letting go. So I love that. I love that idea of those contrasts that you talk about, and I suppose those dualities of that beauty and the mess and the life. I suppose some of the dualities are like the grief and the joy, and then the chaos and the order, and the planning versus the intuition, and and all of those dualities. I can imagine that they would come out in the painting process as well. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, what does it look like when you begin, and how do you even begin? I mean, a lot of people are embracing creativity at the moment, giving it a go, but maybe with your incredible experience and skill, both as an artist and as a teacher, maybe you could walk us through something that could help and inspire confidence in the process.
Yeah, I guess for sure. What I was thinking about also in terms of that, what you were talking about, the messiness and the ugliness and the beauty, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we all know that we can't appreciate the one without the other. If everything was just perfect all the time and everything was beautiful all the time, we actually wouldn't have any frame of reference to say this is beautiful, because we hadn't experienced the ugly.
Yeah.
And then there's also that idea of holding both at the same time. And I kind of went through this last year in our lives as we watched my father's wife actually had a massive stroke. And so, we were with her over 7 months as she ended up passing away. And although that was like one of the worst experiences I've ever kind of been through, the sadness of it and the just such despair because there was no hope for anything to get better, there was also beauty in the moments, and there was beauty in watching my dad become more tender than I had ever seen him be before, watching him care for her in ways that really showed me that he had something inside him that I wasn't even aware existed, and so I was holding that grace, that messy and that beauty in the same moment. I think that's a really important life lesson that we all have to learn, that we all have to go through. In terms of painting, I think when we're young, most of us have that first experience of painting when we're in school, right? And so we're in a classroom, lots of kids, a frazzled teacher who probably has her own art scars, who doesn't really know what to do. and there's a time limit. Got to get it done. Got to get it done. And so the painting is one layer. It's just, that's it. You've got 45 minutes. It's a layer. It's finished. We never learn that it's actually okay to add more layers on top. We're expected to have this perfect thing right in the first layer. And that's really hard to let go of and to move forward from. And so that the very first thing that I do with students is we talk about the fact this is going to be a multi-layered experience. And it's almost like I'm giving them exercises and prompts throughout, whether it's 2 days or 3 days or a week, where they're really going to have to be prepared to lay some things down, sometimes some things that they love, sometimes a really beautiful expression, and then cover up bits that, you know, that they don't want to cover up. And then be open to the fact that something else beautiful could come from that. So that's really the process in a nutshell, but it's a difficult one for people to kind of get their heads around.
Absolutely. And I mean, it comes down to, I suppose, when we talk about that kind of contrast of beauty and chaos, it's really about finding beauty in the chaos.
In the chaos, yes.
Yeah, so, you know, and I think you just described then is that idea of that multi-layered approach whereby we don't have to get it right the first time. And I think that that really buys into a lot of people's inherent perfectionism. And like you said, we're taught in school often through art of that pressure to just get it right because we are of a limited time, whereas now time is definitely something of the essence that a lot of people have. And that idea that we can not be attached to the beginning and that's just part of the process, and that, you know, I suppose a lot of listeners of this podcast do like going to deeper levels in conversation or in, you know, topics and stuff. So it is looking through, getting a bit of depth and looking through the layers. So that's kind of similar with that painting. And I know experiencing your workshops, the layers that we went through, and almost like, you know, bringing out the hidden parts and hiding the visible parts.
Yes, exactly. And also this notion that, like, the whole notion of beginning. So, you know, in Buddhist tradition, there's, and I don't know too much about this at all, so I'm not speaking as an expert, but there's this notion of beginning again in every single moment. And so the only moment we have is the now, right? And so each next now is a new beginning. And so that's the same in art. It's like an exciting thing when you really get your head around that, oh wow, now I get to begin again. There aren't any mistakes because every move is just a new beginning. It's assessing what's here in life as well. You've made a mistake. Well, okay, now there's a new beginning. Where do I go from here? How do I move forward from here? What do I learn from that mistake in order to kind of do something a little differently the next time?
Yeah. Absolutely, you know, and isn't that what life is? A whole bunch of mistakes and just learning.
Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, I can imagine for a lot of people, especially if they haven't done a lot of painting, and even people that might have done more refined painting who are playing with now abstract, because I mean that's what we're really talking about. And I know that that your style is a very abstract style. It's about, you know, like how do you go through that, I suppose, that idea of just trusting and just putting something down, not being attached to any outcome, and knowing and trusting that whatever's meant to come through will come through. And I suppose that's that intuition stuff. And, you know, intuitive art has become quite a big thing, you know, in the, you see it all the time now. And what is intuitive art? And you know, like, is it fluffy? Is it real? Is it like, can you talk me a little bit through art? Because you see it all the time now, and you see it as in like everybody can do it, you know, and then everyone thinks they can also sell their art, you know, like.
I get it. Yeah. So I feel like I feel like I don't really put myself in the intuitive art camp. So
Yeah.
I'll say that straight off the bat.
Yeah.
There's a student said to me once that she loved my classes because, I can't quote, but because there was a sense of being a balance between intuition and intuitive approach and something structural under there as well, some kind of frame of reference. So that's kind of, I feel like intuitive art, in the way that a lot of artists do it, is a little bit scary even for me, because I seem to want to have something to work to, whether it's an idea or a place I was in, or so I've got a series at the moment which is semi-abstract, but there are little bits of, it's called Wanderlust, and there are little bits of different places I've been, and so people will say, is this inspired by Mexico, or is this inspired by Cambodia? Well, there's a little bit of Mexico in there. There's a little bit of Cambodia over there. That little man in the field reminds me of a guy we saw in Guatemala, and so they're threads coming from different parts of experience. But having said that, I'm never averse to transformation and to really switching something on its head. And so let's say I'm working on a piece that is, I'm thinking it's part of the Wanderlust series. But suddenly I walk past it upside down on my desk and I see something in the upside down view that reminds me of an eye of a deer or something, something completely different. And that takes my, maybe I'm struggling with it, and then I'd see something, a different perspective, and I suddenly go, wow, I'm actually going to turn it upside down and work on it in a different way. I'm going to let go of the idea of what I thought it was going to be, and something new is going to come. And so that part of it, I guess, is intuitive. It's like, well, which way shall I take it? Which direction shall I head with this piece? But giving yourself permission to switch up, to transform, and to just not be stuck with one idea. I think that's really an important piece.
Yeah. And I mean, that also just takes us back again to the parallel really with life, and that duality again between planning and intuition.
Yes. Yeah. So what did John Lennon said, life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, when you were just saying that, then so many things came to my mind, and I don't know which angle to take it to. Like the idea of change of perception is such a huge thing. A lot of people get really attached and committed to, say, something they said or something they said they're going to do in life, and don't give themselves permission to change it up when it doesn't feel right anymore, or when things could feel a lot better moving in a slightly different angle. And often that's the ego really coming in and taking over. And it's that same, I imagine it's that same discernment between the voice of the ego and the voice of the intuition that comes through in the painting as well. It's like, does the ego keep going, or is it that intuition that takes over? And that's kind of the same in life. It's that ability to discern which voice to listen to. And it's so funny because I don't know, I think this is relevant, but let's explore a little bit. When we had that time together in Fiji, and we had the privilege of being with Liz Gilbert for the week as well, she talked a lot about boundaries, right? Yes.
And so let's kind of think about boundaries in terms of making those decisions also, and being allowed to say, I can change right now, or I have changed. And then, so this morning, as often happens, here's a story along these lines. I got a message, an Instagram from a woman who, she had seen a portrait I did of Liz and Rhea in my Wise Women series way back. And at that time, a lot of people contacted me and said, could you do a commission of me as a wise woman? Yeah. And so I took on a few commissions, and they were freaking hard, right? Because those are small paintings, this 8 by 10 and to get, or 9 by 12. And so to get like that level of detail, to get the likeness of somebody, that takes a long time. I can do one of just a generic wise woman, I don't know who she is. It's just a woman that comes through, and that takes a certain amount of time. But if you're trying to get a likeness, it's maybe 2 or 3 times the time, fiddling and trying to, right? And so this woman hadn't been in touch with me. She originally had asked for a commissioned piece of herself. Since then, I've made the decision I'm not doing that anymore. I did several, and I've made the decision I'm not doing those particular commissions. So she said, I haven't gotten back to you. I'm so sorry. I've been involved in a project. I'm ready for the commission now. And I just left the message sitting there. And my daughter, Cece, who works for me, who's very good around boundaries, like she's 23 and she's already got it down. She said, why didn't you answer that one straight away? That one's only going to take you 2 minutes. And I said, oh no, I had to think about what I was going to say. And, you know, and I had to like really, I was starting to agonize about it. And she's like, Mom, you already made a decision that you weren't going to do those anymore. So you just write back and you just say, oh, thanks for getting back in touch. In the past 12 months, things have changed a little. I'm focusing on other areas and I'm not taking commissions for the wise women at this point. Yep. I'm like, it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple. But why do we like try and like overanalyze everything? And, you know, it's a difficult thing. Boundaries are hard, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, and that's, I'm sure that boundaries, you know, even in its form of the word, a visual, like, you know, where the way that, you know, you were talking about it in that story is the way that we assert boundaries between ourselves and another person, and keeping our own truth inside the boundary and not stepping over our own truth. But ultimately a boundary is a line, really, or a curve, or a shape.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
We do that, and I'm sure you do that, have a way of doing that so well every single time that you paint, because there's a boundary between colours, a boundary between areas of the painting, and then along with, when I was actually thinking prior to recording this podcast with you, I was thinking also about this idea of boundaries and painting, and also looking at the word edges, because in a canvas, you're like pushing to the edges, but not going over the boundary.
Yeah.
And so how in life do we also do that? Like right now, like even in that story that you shared, how do you go to your edge of comfort, or your edge of the edge of discomfort? But still manage to stay within your boundaries.
So I think that what comes up there is that it's all a work in progress. You know, and awareness is the key, really. Like self-awareness is the key. Whether you're working on your painting or you're working on your life, if you recognize, you're able to kind of say, oh, I'm doing that thing again. I'm trying to overcomplicate. I'm trying to over-explain. I'm trying to justify myself. Like those are the things that come up for me personally. And then to have a daughter to remind me, Mum, you're doing that thing. All you need to do is make it simple. You don't actually need to tell a big story about why you can't do it, or why, you just have to say something's changed and I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So being assertive. Your communication, and your communication might be, the paint on the canvas, or the communication might be a verbal communication. But, I'm sure at the same time, what also comes to mind is that, and I think this parallels also with life, is that when you're painting and you go over what you plan to be your boundary, what you felt before it was presenting was going to be your boundary, but you struggled in the process, and you went over it and extended yourself to an area where it got messy. I'm not sure, but I can imagine, and maybe you can share with me, were the times that it became more successful for you when that happened was to step back and reflect on the mess before then taking the dance and the step forward. So it's like a dance between, take a step back and reflect, take a step forward and move forward.
And that's really important. So I talk about fresh eyes all the time in terms of art. walking away from the painting, especially if it's doing your head in, going somewhere else, putting it away for a while, just put it away. Like, don't put it away and never come back to it. It's a different thing to say, that's it, you're going in the rubbish. It's like, just, no, you're just going to sit back there for a minute. Or sometimes I even just put it on the wall. Yeah. And I try to just give it a sideways, a peripheral glance as I'm moving by. And I might leave it for months sometimes. And then I'll just walk by it one day and go, oh, here's what needs to be done. But I've given myself enough grace and enough time to like not be so emotionally angsty about it, just to come back and kind of go, wait a minute, this is not as hard as I was making it out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that with many programs. They've got shelved. To do with that anymore. I'll shelve that for a while. Come back to that another time. Or a blog article, or lots of
right. And that's the thing, like, and how often do you do that? I just had this amazing experience because I'm working on a class at the moment called story painting. It's coming out in a month or so. And I knew I'd been percolating it for a few months. And as part of the class, we're doing a lot of sketchbook practice, which I hadn't done myself personally for a long time. So often when I'm making a class, I'm actually reinvigorating a practice within myself as well. Yeah. And so I'm doing a lot of sketchbook practice. And then I decided in one of the videos to go back to my really old sketchbooks from when I was doing my fine arts degree and have a look. So just show them on video, like on here, and and here I was looking at this. And in this page, I was doing this, blah, blah, blah. And you wouldn't believe how many threads in that sketchbook that I was looking through were now showing up in the class that I am filming right now, 11 years later.
Wow.
And I had no idea. I hadn't looked at those sketchbooks for so long. And there was Chagall in the sketchbook, and I was writing about his storytelling. And I've got Chagall in one of the lessons in this class, And so sometimes we plant the seeds. We don't even know what we're planting them for. We're just like, la-di-la, playing around with something. But it's all like coming together. Something's happening, once you set those things in motion, something's happening, and then it's coming together, and it will come out at some other point, even without you doing anything about it. We're going off on so many tangents, but I love it.
No, that's okay. It's all good. It's all juicy. It's all, it's all juicy, and it all actually reminds me of the word that is used in your signature program, and that is mojo.
Yes.
Yes. And your painting workshop, I know this is going off on a tangent a little bit again, but your painting workshop is called Paint Mojo. And everything you're talking about, it's like, as you're doing it, I'm feeling that magical feeling that comes and, from being joyful and feeling connected, and from living in the creative flow, or living on purpose, and trusting and being in your personal power. And that's what Mojo is.
It is. It's your special, unique magic that's only you. It's only for you. It's made up of all the elements that are really just, like your kind of relevant enchantment, and it's not for anybody else. And if we don't kind of get it out, that's the other thing that I kind of think about a lot, is that there's this spectrum. Yeah. And on one end of the spectrum is flow. Mm-hmm. Connection to source, like all the big stuff, love. And on the other end of the spectrum is stagnancy, fear, just being stuck, not just being tight. And we're always between one or the other, but the trick is to try and stay as much toward the creative and love side as we can do, and so always to check ourselves and go, what am I feeling like right now? Am I over towards the stuck and stagnant side? Because that's going to manifest physically, mentally, emotionally, creatively.
Absolutely.
If you stay there too long, right, it's going to manifest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So taking that a step further, right now, a lot of people are stuck in their homes. I don't know if I like the word stuck, but, are residing in their homes for the time. And rather than feeling stuck, they could be possibly embracing the situation and noticing some of their feelings being at that end of the spectrum that you talked just about feeling stagnant and fear and all of those things. But we all know that in an ultimate ideal world, we want to feel the other end of the spectrum, which is more of the love and the joy and the enchantment and the wonder and the curiosity and the creativity and the flow and all of those wonderful things that give us our mojo.
Yeah.
So what sort of things could you, I mean, a lot of people have got this time now and they are doing creative projects, whether it's sewing masks or, or getting into the kitchen and creating a recipe, or doing things like giving painting a go. And I went to the store before it all closed down the road, and there was hardly a canvas left. And so how do you know if these are the feelings that you're feeling? Do you start that canvas with that sort of those more, I suppose, what some would term less appealing type feelings, and just bloody throw the paint to begin with, and then let that flow into bringing out the clarity and bringing out the joy as it takes its own course.
It develops.
Like,
that's interesting.
From one spectrum to the other. Like, do you try to move yourself before you start, or do you start from that place? Is that, and then helps you move?
I think that I personally, if I was feeling, which at the whole beginning of this COVID thing, I felt quite unmotivated. And I was spending a lot of time sitting on the lounge in the morning and just scrolling social media, saying I was working because I can put post here. But there was a lot of wasted time as well. And I just felt this sense of, but I don't really feel like doing anything. I don't really, and so, but I think that was natural. I think a lot of people felt that.
Yep.
And then at some point I'm like, wow, like I'm this rock and I'm sitting just here, and somebody's just got to give me a shove, because once you get the shove going, then the momentum's going, and then you'll just keep going. And so I made myself go out and start working on some paintings. And for me, it's probably a little easier because I have particular series that I'm working on, and some that I really love, and I know I have a starting point, and so I know, okay, this is what I do when I start this one. I write a poem on the page, and and then I look for, and I do some collage, and then I look for some opportunities. Do I see a figure, or does that collage look like the top of a hat, or that type of thing. So I do have my own little processes that help me to get going. Throwing paint at the canvas is probably not one of my beginning ones, because I don't know, it feels like it would just have a whole different energy, like, to me, and I would want to just I think that when I'm feeling stuck, I need to start in a more calm, meditative way, in a way. But having said that, there are other things outside of painting as well that have really helped me these last few months. I joined an online dance program, and so I've been dancing every day in a daily challenge. It reminds me of, did you ever hear of jazzercise? I don't know if it was really in Australia. I was living in America at the time.
No.
But jazzercise was an 80s thing, and it was just really fun. It was like all, just
dancey.
I
do remember it. I think people went to classes, like,
You're probably a bit younger than me, but anyway, it's kind of like that. There are dance moves, and it's really fun. And then other things like that have kind of a metaphor for new growth and new beginnings. I've been taking clippings of my plants that I have, and then putting them in little jars, and just making little vignettes in the house, making things pretty. And these are the things that we don't often have the time to do. And so sorting through your closet, getting rid of stuff you don't. So all of those things, they're like little things that you can do to begin to break that stagnancy. And also, especially when you're letting go of stuff, like material stuff, that's kind of clearing the space for a different kind of energy to come in as well. So I think those are all really good things that we could be doing in this time, like just getting rid of some of the junk that that we don't normally have time to sort through.
I mean, I know that when you just said about getting the clippings and stuff like that, it sparked my thought that in your paintings, one thing that you've always said that inspires you is your travels and nature. And the idea of, for me, you know, in all of anyone who listens to my podcasts or has followed any of my work, they know how much I believe in my mantra of the connection is medicine, and it's connection to yourself, to others, and the world around us. And I know that art is something that really helps connect us. It connects us, obviously, as we've already spoken a lot about, to ourselves. It also then, I suppose, we can share it with others, and our piece can act as a mirror for others, and we can talk about that in a minute. But the other piece about connecting to the world around us, and I know that nature and the world around us and your travels is something that's really inspired your artwork. And right now, one of the things that most people, I don't know all over the world, but I know locally for us, and I'm in Victoria, where we're pretty much locked down in our houses, except to maybe, you know, go out for essential food as well as exercise. And I know when I exercise, I do something called an exercise for the senses and the soul. So I go for a walk and I just really take in everything around me in my local neighborhood. So maybe we can't travel and we can't do all that, but maybe just going for a walk and looking for inspiration. And
so two things.
You know, and coming back and seeing those colors or those shapes or those textures that are around us to bring back into possibly some creative play.
Absolutely. So two things that came to mind just then is one thing that I always do when we're at a workshop or a retreat. I feel like in order to really appreciate and put ourselves in the environment that we're in, and then have that environment come into our art, we go and we collect nature tools, or sometimes not even nature tools. Like, for example, we're in Bali last year, and whatever was on the beach, interesting things that could make marks. So some of them were nature, bits of coconut, strange pieces of wood, bark. And then there were also weird plasticky things that had washed up that, you know, we were like children. We were walking along and we were like, oh, look at this little thing, you know, might be a cap of a lid of something. And like, people were looking at us like we were crazy. But for us, it was all about, what can I do with this thing? Oh my God, I can stamp it and make little round marks with it. And this one could do, look at this funny little troll that washed up on the beach. I could use his hair as a paintbrush and dip it in the paint. And so, you know, there's that kind of a thing, just exploring making marks. And that's often what I'll do as the base layer of a painting. And if you do that, actually using the tools that you've found on your daily walk, then you're bringing that home with you and imbuing that layer of the painting with your walk, in a sense, right? So that, you know, that becomes, even if it's an abstract piece, that is a painting about the walk you just took in nature. You've painted it with those things. So that's one thing. And then I remember years ago when I was teaching kids art classes, I used to have them all come to my studio every afternoon after school, and I had this one little exercise that they loved. And basically I would put numbers into a little vessel, a jar or a hat or something like that. Usually I think there were numbers like 1 to 50. And how did I do it? It was something like, you would stop every so often. Oh no, the first kid would take a number, and let's say it was the number 15. Well, we would all take 15 big steps down the side passage with our little sketchbooks and our pencils. And when we got to 15, we had to stop and we had to look around wherever we were, and we had to sketch something that we saw. It could be a rock on the ground. There could be nothing there. Sometimes we'd have to think really hard. What is here? Oh, it's just a fence. Well, what's on the fence? Oh, there's an interesting pattern. And then the next kid would pick number 49. We'd take 49 steps, stop again. So it was a really fun thing to do while you took a little walk around the neighborhood. So that's just another idea. If you don't want to sketch, you could do the same thing with your camera. Just stop and then take a picture of whatever you see at that point in time. Zoom in, zoom out, look down, look up. Challenge yourself to look with an artist's eyes, which is from every perspective. Imagine you're an ant on the ground. Look down and see what the ant would see. What's up in the sky? You know, so there's so many different ways that you could take that exercise and then come back with those photos. You got a series of work right there.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Yeah.
And, there's so much that I love about that.
Mm.
And I love, and I think the benefit is multiple. And I know it sounds like
Mm.
such a simple
Mm.
exercise and so
Mhm.
childlike, but
Yeah.
right now people are sort of wanting new ideas of ways to
Yeah.
do things,
Yeah.
inspiration. And there
Mm.
is so much in that simple activity that comes to mind.
Mm.
One, we're getting into our senses.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
what are we hearing? What are we looking at?
Mhm.
What texture is it? How would it feel? And all of the senses.
Mm.
And when we get into our
Mm.
senses, what are we doing? We're getting into our body,
Mm. Mhm.
which then
Yeah.
takes us away from the chatter of our mind. The fear is
Yeah.
not coming from our body. The fear is coming from the stories in the mind that are developed
Yes.
and then end up
Yes.
being felt in our body. But originally,
Yes.
it's not, it's not necessarily, it's not coming, certainly not coming from the wisdom of our body, unless it's about, fear used for good and, running away and
Right.
survival. I mean, that's a completely
Yeah.
different thing. And I'm not
Different
talking
thing.
about that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
the idea of really getting us into our senses. And then the
Mm.
next part, you're talking about that change of lens and really looking through
Mhm.
the lens of an artist.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
does that mean? And I mean,
Yeah.
it's the ones that are thriving at this
Yeah.
point in time. And I'm not talking about all of them.
Mm.
Yes, there are a lot of, like, say, performance artists and musical artists who are really struggling right now because,
Mm.
their mediums of putting their work out there and events and all those things aren't happening. But their
Yeah.
ability to really pivot and come up with creative
Yeah.
solutions is
Yes.
definitely way far ahead than a lot of other people in a lot of other
Yeah.
industries, because they've got those skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a gift that's going to come out of this for sure, is that people are going to have that greater awareness of just because something stops being the way it is, it doesn't mean that you can't
Yeah,
change it or flip it or do something a little bit different. And creatives, you're right, they already have that. Our nephew's in a really well-known band in America, and he wasn't touring, obviously, and he's usually touring all the time. And this last weekend, they did a concert where everybody came to the concert in their cars, like a drive-in movie. And
yes.
so the band was playing and everybody was just in their cars, kind of having their own parties and listening. And
They
there were
stand
like
on the
hundreds and
car and
hundreds.
dance.
Yeah, they could stand on the roof of the car and dance. They could do all of that as long as they were socially distanced, right? They were all
Yeah.
apart from each other. So yeah, people are doing things in different ways and it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
look, it's definitely like creativity on steroids at the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I love that. And I love that idea of, wonder and enchantment
Mm. Mm.
and really it's something that, even though people might feel like they're on Groundhog Day at the moment because each day it has the
Mm-hmm.
potential to look the same as the day before.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think it's a very different Groundhog Day than a lot of people were previously living. They were living the
Yes.
Groundhog Day and not even realizing that they were living Groundhog
Right. Yes.
Day. And
Yeah.
and I think that we have that opportunity right now to not to get off the hamster wheel, to get off the treadmill,
Mm-hmm.
and to do it
Mm.
quite differently, because we have often wonder comes and enchantment comes and those opportunities and that permission to play comes from feeling like we've got the gift of time.
Time, space and time. You're
Yeah.
right, absolutely. Yeah, because what you were just describing there, and I've read stories about people that they get up at 7 in the morning, they get their kids off to daycare or what at school or whatever, and then one goes to their job and the other goes to the other job, and then they get home at 6:30 and then they're feeding the kids. We've never had that life. We've always been creative entrepreneurs. So and to me, that sounds like it's way over at the stagnant end. It really does. It's the same, and you don't have the quality time, and you're just on that treadmill.
Yeah.
So this is giving people, that space and time to kind of reflect and think, oh, how could it be different? What
Yeah.
other things could I do? Mm.
Absolutely. So,
Mm.
right, like right in the beginning of this episode or this conversation, I introduced talking about how a lot of people are using art for a form of therapy and respite.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But I think that we've really discussed how much more than just that it is. And it is that, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also the idea of really allowing it to improve your self-awareness, seeing, allowing it to trigger you, as soon as you go to making, whether it's a new something you've never made in the kitchen before, or painting, or doing anything that has a creative edge, even if it's a structured thing like following a pattern for a mask,
Right.
Anytime we come to doing something creatively, we are having to practice self-belief, having to realize whether we have, being aware of that voice that's telling us, oh my God, you're shit at this, how do you do this? And that inner critic, then having a war with that inner critic a little bit, and seeing how much self-compassion you do or don't have, how much self-love you do or don't give yourself, noticing how patient or impatient you are, whether you are calm and approach things from a calm and relaxed place, or whether you are absolutely chaotic and all over the place. Where your level of confidence is in taking on new things, what sort of perspectives you have. There's so much in self-awareness that can come from just doing the smallest creative project. And
there really is.
It's such a blessing. Go.
Can I add one thing in? So, and in amongst all of that, have you ever watched the Dalai Lama and how he giggles all the time? Like, he's always laughing. And I remember him he was on one of the morning shows in Melbourne once. And I think they were taking the mickey out of the Dalai Lama because they know he's a vegetarian, and they bought him like a pepperoni pizza or something for breakfast. They thought it was hilarious. And he ate a piece, but he giggled because he kind of said, I don't eat this, don't you? And he ate a bite and he giggled. And I thought, wow, it's good humor and grace, right? And if we can only have that as well. You were talking about cooking, and I love to cook. And I'm not a recipe person, because in the same way that I'm not a recipe person with my paintings either, right? So same. And I love to, like, when you're running out of food and then you're like, well, what have I got in there? I've got a can of peas, I've got, some eggs, and I've got whatever. Then I love
the challenge.
Yes, I love it. So you just play the game of what can you put together and what can you make, and it doesn't always turn out. So what are you going to do? Like, if it doesn't turn out, are you going to, like, just get down and, I'm such a shit cook, like, oh, this is awful, blah blah blah? What we do is, like, we'll taste it, and if it's not, we just look at each other and we burst into laughter. Marco and I were like, not a keeper. Not a keeper. And so you have to be able to laugh at yourself and not just take everything so seriously.
Absolutely. I had the biggest fail, and I was, oh my God, such a shame. Like, I do love to cook, and I made an effort to have a go at my mum's, and then it was actually my grandmother's cheesecake recipe.
Oh wow, pressure.
I have done it justice in the past, but I did far from justice because I forgot to put the cup of sugar in it. So everyone at the table is taking it, knowing the effort and the love and the excitement that I was putting into doing this.
Right.
And it tasted terrible. Like, well, it just tasted like you're really eating, like, cheese. Cheese, not the texture of cheese.
Right.
At first, everybody's trying to think of being, polite and whatever, and in the end, we all just started laughing, and turned into a humorous joke. And I was a bit heartbroken, but funny. And the cake, went in the bin, but that's just a part of experimentation and play, isn't it?
You'll never forget the sugar again, will you?
No.
You'll be like, gotta give the sugar in. Right? Yeah, exactly. And so I think, we do get really hard on ourselves about a lot of things. And it just has to stop. Like, treat yourself as kindly as you would treat somebody else that you love.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
It's that trick of of not turning what might look or taste like shit
Mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm.
going, that means I am shit.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Because they're both actually, you know, and it's so
Two
easy
different
to do
things.
that often when we produce something that we see as being really crap, to then make that into about yourself, that and generalize,
Right,
I'm just crap. I'm just crap at this.
right. Yes, yeah, and I
Crap
hear
cook,
that. Like I
I'm a
hear,
crap
yeah,
painter, I'm a crap
yeah,
whatever, just because
yeah.
one thing you produced might
Hmm.
be crap.
I see that. I hear it all the time. That the class that we did in Fiji, that was the first time I'd done a really short class like that, 45 minutes. Like usually we have at least 2 days. And so I was really interested to see in 45 minutes how
Yeah.
much pressure people would put on themselves. And there was the whole range of students, from students who went, that was so fun to play. Um, I don't like the way it turned out. It was really fun to play, you know. And then there was the other students who, one woman just left it with me, and she said, I really don't want to take that at all. I don't like what I did. And, you know, and then, and I feel like there were probably a couple who just felt that that 45 minutes justified to themselves that they were as bad at art as they thought they were. As, no matter what I say, you know, like people are going to have their own meaning around something. And so, yeah, but like what else would we have a go at in 45 minutes and then say, oh, I'm no good at that? Like if somebody said, I'll give you a quick crash course in Spanish for 45 minutes and then you walked away and you said, oh, I can't speak fluent Spanish, so I must really suck at it, I'm never going to try that again. Like we just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. So the key is practice, and
Practice, put the work in. Yes.
life is really about a
Yeah.
practice, isn't it? It's about,
Yes.
I mean, our whole life is just, I don't know what we're practicing for, but we're just practicing.
for life. Well, what about the baby that's learning to walk? You know,
Yeah.
pull yourself up, try and take a step, fall down.
Yeah.
You know, there's no baby that says that's it. Yeah, you don't say I'm giving up. I'm never going to walk. I'll just crawl for the rest of my life.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Oh my God, there's so much juice in this conversation, and we've really,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we could take one little section of it and, you know,
Yeah.
run with that and explore, but instead we've
Yeah.
just gone from here to there to everywhere. And hopefully, if you're listening to this right now, you've been able to follow our conversation, because we've had fun talking.
Yeah. There's some nuggets in there. There's really some nuggets in there. And this is the creative impulse also to run off with shiny things as well. So it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, isn't it? It's about it's about finding the shiny bits also, you know, in the canvas. When you step back, and if you're listening to this, you know, just if you need to press pause because it's something that's inspired you, and get out your piece of paper and take a little bit of notes, and take a little bit of let your mind travel down those shiny bits and find those shiny bits that might inspire you. Go for it. Yeah, we're blessed in technology with that lovely pause button. And there's definitely a lot of power in it, in life as well, the power of the pause.
Woohoo.
On that note, is there anything that you would love to share? I think, you know, I'd love you to share some details maybe about, I know that currently you've got a program, a painting program or course that's happening that people can take, and it's extremely reasonable and accessible.
Yeah, so I put one out during this time that I wanted to kind of be accessible for everybody. And so it's called Jump into Abstract Painting. So it's kind of suitable for beginners or people who've been painting for a long time. And it's just 5 small videos giving you tips and techniques and prompts to take the next step, to not be scared, to keep the momentum going, even when you feel like something hasn't worked out. So that one's only $27, and we'll just keep it going for the next few months at least. And you can find it on my site, tracyverdugo.com. So yeah, it's exciting. And then I'm working on the bigger class story painting, which I'm very excited about as well. So keep your eyes and ears open for that one.
Oh, brilliant. And then you've also got, your book, which if somebody wasn't wanting to do it online and they wanted to actually have something hard copy, because
Yep.
people are spending a lot of time online at the moment. Are
Yep.
you posting those out at the moment? How's that work?
So Paint Mojo is my book, and it's available through all of the online bookstores, Amazon Book Depository, Booktopia. It's in bookstores as well. Not so much in Australia because it's an American publisher. It's Random House. But if you're listening in America, you can just go out your local bookstore.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'll put all of those books on the show notes anyway.
Yep. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure and such an inspiration talking to you. I feel like getting off from this call and pulling out the canvas and,
Yay.
really inspired. And I hope that anyone who's listening today, that you are inspired to just take on a little bit out of your comfort zone and embrace your creativity. And if art isn't your thing, that maybe the creativity comes from just brainstorming some creative solutions to whatever problems you feel or challenges you feel at this point in time. We may have made light of a lot of things in this conversation, but we are both really aware that it is a really challenging time. It's uncertain. And like I said in the beginning, most people do struggle with uncertainty and are very uncomfortable in that space. So if that is you, you're certainly not alone. It's something that a lot of people are struggling with at the moment, but I really encourage you to just give things a go, do things a little bit differently than you might have done so in the past. And get out that canvas or that piece of paper, or pull out some paints or coloured pencils or scissors and glue, and just have a go and embrace the layers.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I say just one more thing that you reminded me of when you were saying that, Lisa, is that one of the other lessons that I always talk about in our painting process is to focus on the sweet spot, to focus on the joy in our lives. And so even when things are really tough, there's usually some small sweet spot, even if it's just acknowledging the fact that you have eyes to see, we have breath to live, we have food in the cupboard. Being grateful for all the small things. That's that kind of whole idea of just focusing on the sweet spot. And the thing is that in quantum physics, what you focus on expands. And so I think maybe that's a good place to to kind of leave things off if people are focusing more on the things that are not bringing them joy, to just make that conscious decision to just flip that and see if they can focus in on something that is giving them some joy.
Yeah, the beauty in the chaos.
Yep. For sure.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And, as I said, it's just always such a pleasure talking to you. I love our conversations, and I'm glad that others have now been able to gain some inspiration from you that I always gain from you. So if you have been listening, what is your biggest takeaway from today's conversation? We would love to know. So share a comment with us. Let us know whether it be from the platform that you're listening to this episode on, or whether it be from one of the social media shares that we do. Just drop us a comment. Let us know some of your biggest takeaways or anything that you would like to add to the conversation. As Tracy said, if you'd like more information on Tracy, you can go to her website. Do you want to repeat that website again, Trace?
Yeah, tracyverdugo.com, and also over at Instagram, just at Tracy Verdugo.
Brilliant. And I will also put that in the show notes anyway. If you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love you to share it with your friends, and consider subscribing to the Wealthy Living podcast on iTunes and on YouTube. To find out a little bit more about my services, you can visit my website at wealthyliving.com.au, or connect with me on any of my social media platforms. Until next time, remember, connection is medicine.